2 weeks before my wedding, my fiancé left me for my brother. My parents told me, be happy for him, and when I refused to be his best man, they legally disowned me. Months later, they were standing at my door, crying, because someone had just torched their perfect little world. Hey, Reddit. I never thought I'd be the guy posting something like this, but here we are. My family's situation went from messy to downright insane. And I figured I'd put it out here because honestly, I don't know if I'm the crazy one, or if they really are as bad as I think. It all started with my engagement, my brother, and some choices that completely blew everything up. So I guess I should start from the top. My name's Mason, I'm 33, and until about a year ago, I thought my life was finally settling into place. I'd been with Sasha for 4 years. We met at this little diner near downtown, and we hit it off right away. Honestly, she felt like my first real shot at building a future with someone. We picked out rings together, set a date, and even booked this vineyard outside the city. It wasn't anything crazy fancy, but it was perfect for us. At least that's what I thought. Sasha had this way of turning everything into an event. Even just picking flowers for the tables. She'd spin it into this big vision. She had binders, color palettes, Pinterest boards, the whole deal. That wasn't me. I was just happy because she was happy. And I figured that's what marriage was going to be. Everything seemed on track. Until Chester came back. My younger brother. 2 years behind me, but always ahead in everyone else's eyes. He'd just finished some MBA program in London, and my parents would not shut up about him. Chester this, Chester that. Chester's starting his own consulting firm. Chester's connections overseas. Meanwhile, I was just the other son with a steady job. That's literally how they introduced me sometimes. Not my title, not what I'd achieved, just the other one. At first, I was glad Chester and Sasha got along. I mean, you want your fiancé to like your family, right? They'd talk about markets and international business. Stuff I honestly found boring. But then I noticed how often Chester's name started slipping into our conversations. Chester thinks we should try this investment. Chester says the market's going to tank. At first, it was background noise. Then it became every other sentence. Still, I ignored it because I trusted them both. 2 weeks before the wedding, my phone buzzes at work. It's Sasha. Her voice sounds off, too cheerful, like she'd rehearsed it. She says, "Can you meet me at the diner?" The same diner where we first met. And I had this knot in my stomach before I even got there. She was already sitting at the table when I walked in. The exact same table from our first date. Except this time, she couldn't even look at me. She had the ring box in her hand. "I can't marry you, Mason," she said. Just like that. No build-up. No hesitation. I laughed at first, because what do you even say to that? I thought maybe it was cold feet. I asked if it was about some stupid fight we'd had over the guest list. She shook her head. "It's not that. I'm in love with Chester." It felt like the air got sucked out of the room. I didn't yell, didn't flip the table. I just sat there, staring at her, watching this person I thought I knew show me a version of herself I'd never seen. She tried to look sad, but it came off more like she was annoyed I wasn't making it easier for her. Then she slid the ring box across the table toward me, like it was some kind of parting gift. "I think you should have this back," she said, standing up to leave. She didn't even wait for me to respond. Just tossed it over like it was nothing, then walked out. 2 hours later, my mom calls me to come over. She already knows. She's not surprised. She says maybe this is for the best, that Sasha and Chester are better matched. Dad chimes in, saying Chester is more her speed, like they'd been waiting for this. When I asked if they were actually okay with my brother stealing my fiancé 2 weeks before my wedding, they didn't even flinch. Mom said, "People fall in love, Mason. Better now than after the wedding." Dad added, "You'll find someone else. Chester and Sasha are perfect for each other." Then Chester walked in, wearing the graduation watch I'd given him. He looked guilty, but not guilty enough to stop. He said, "Look, I know this is awkward, but we didn't mean for it to happen. We tried to fight it. We haven't even done anything physical yet. How noble of them, right? And then the cherry on top. Chester cleared his throat and asked if they could use my vineyard booking, because Sasha loved that place, and it made financial sense since everything was already paid for. My parents actually nodded along like it was logical. So let me get this straight. My brother takes my fiancée. My parents cheer him on. And now they want me to hand over my wedding, too. That was the moment I knew. It didn't matter what I felt to them. Chester's happiness would always matter more than mine. Always. I didn't slam doors. Didn't scream. I just stood up and walked out. Sometimes silence is louder than anything you could say. A few days later, my parents called me again. Not to ask how I was holding up. No, they wanted to share the good news. Chester and Sasha were officially engaged. My mom sounded over the moon, like she'd been waiting for this announcement her whole life. Dad said it was fate that the two of them found each other. Meanwhile, I was sitting there thinking, fate? No, this wasn't fate. This was betrayal dressed up like romance. That night, I scrolled social media. And there it was, Sasha flashing her new ring in pictures, standing next to Chester, my parents grinning on each side of them. Relatives leaving comments about what a perfect couple they made. Not a single word about me. Not even one message to check in. That's when it hit me. I wasn't part of their family anymore. Maybe I never had been. I kept to myself for a couple weeks after their big engagement announcement. Didn't answer my parents' calls. Didn't reply to Chester's texts. Honestly, I didn't know what I could even say without losing my mind. Friends checked in at first, but how do you explain this without it sounding fake? Yeah, my little brother stole my fiancée 2 weeks before our wedding, and now my parents are planning their engagement party. People don't know what to do with that. They just kind of nod and say, "Man, that sucks," then change the subject. One Saturday morning, my parents showed up at my place uninvited. I opened the door, and there they were, smiling like nothing was wrong. Mason, Mom started, smoothing her skirt like she hadn't just barged into my home. "We need to talk about Chester's wedding." I just stood there. Wedding. They'd been engaged for, 2 weeks? Dad shrugged. When it's right, it's right. They've set a date and things are moving quickly. I laughed. Couldn't help it. So my fiancé dumps me for my brother. And 2 weeks later you're here to plan their wedding with me? You hear yourselves, right? Dad's voice went firm. Enough with the victim routine. We're here because Chester wants you to be his best man. I actually thought he was joking. I laughed again, louder this time. His what? Best man. Mom repeated it like it was perfectly normal. It would mean so much to him and to us. This is your chance to show you're the bigger person. To rise above all this pettiness and be there for your brother. I just stared at them, waiting for the hidden camera crew to jump out. You really think I'd stand up there beside him while he marries the woman I was supposed to marry 2 weeks ago? Dad stepped forward, lowering his voice like he was giving me fatherly wisdom. Think how it will look if Chester's own brother isn't standing beside him. People will talk. Do you want that kind of embarrassment hanging over the family? And there it was. Not my feelings. Not my pain. Just their obsession with appearances. They didn't care that I was humiliated. They cared that other people might notice. You know what's embarrassing? I snapped. The fact that you let this happen. The fact that you both knew Chester had feelings for Sasha and decided not to warn me. The fact that you clapped when they announced their engagement instead of asking if I was okay. That's embarrassing. Mom's eyes narrowed. They said they only suspected Chester liked her. They didn't want to stir up drama where there might not be any. Not stir up drama. I laughed bitterly. So you let me walk blind into a wedding while Sasha and Chester were already halfway there? That's not protecting me. That's setting me up. Dad's voice got sharp. Mason. They tried to do the right thing. They fought their feelings. They didn't even sleep together until after she broke up with you. Oh wow, how noble, I shot back. They waited a whole day to jump into bed. Guess I should be sending them a thank you card. The room went silent for a beat. Then Dad cleared his throat, resetting. Regardless of how you feel, Mason, the wedding is happening. Chester is happy. Sasha is happy. And we expect you to be there as best man. I stood up, staring them both down. Let me make this clear. I will not stand at an altar next to my brother while he marries my ex-fiancée. I will not smile for pictures. I will not pretend this is some great love story. You can call it fate, you can call it family. But I call it betrayal. And I want no part of it. Mom's voice went icy. You're overreacting. He's your brother. This is your chance to prove you're loyal to the family. No, I said flatly. This is my chance to prove I still have a shred of self-respect. Something you've all clearly forgotten about. They didn't stay much longer after that. More muttering about me being selfish. More disappointed looks. And then they left. I shut the door behind them and stood there for a long time, hands shaking, but my heart pounding with this weird mix of anger and relief. For once, I hadn't backed down. A few weeks later, the wedding actually happened. I wasn't there. Obviously. I didn't send a card, didn't send a gift, nothing. I found out everything secondhand. Social media posts from relatives. Group pictures with everyone beaming like this was the fairy tale ending they'd all been waiting for. They even held the ceremony at the vineyard I had booked, the place I'd spent months planning around. My parents uploaded photo after photo of Chester and Sasha in front of the same arch I'd chosen. Our son Chester finally getting his happy ending. Not a single mention of me. Not one. And sitting in my apartment, scrolling through all of it, I realized something else. Maybe this was the best thing that could have happened. Because now I knew exactly where I stood. I thought that was the end of it. They had their perfect wedding, their shiny Facebook pictures. Their true love conquers all garbage. I figured maybe now they'd finally leave me alone. But I should have known better. My family doesn't quit. Not because they care, but because they can't stand losing control. At first, it was little things. My mom leaving voicemails about Thanksgiving, asking if I'd put the past behind me and come join the family table. My dad leaving these clipped messages about how it's childish to isolate yourself. I ignored all of it. Then one day, I came home from work and realized my front door was unlocked. At first, I thought maybe I'd been careless. But when I stepped inside, there they were. Mom, Dad, and Chester. Sitting in my living room like they owned the place. My stomach dropped. The only way they could have gotten in was with the spare key I'd given my parents for emergencies. I guess in their minds, me not falling in line counted as one. What the hell are you doing here? I asked, dropping my bag. Dad leaned back on the couch, completely calm. We need to talk. No, I shot back immediately. You need to get out. Mason, Chester said, standing up with his hands raised like I was some wild animal. Just give us 5 minutes, okay? Get out. This has gone on long enough, Mom declared, her voice sharp like she was the one who'd been wronged. You're 33 years old, Mason, and you're acting like a spoiled child. You're ruining our reputation. I laughed cold. A spoiled child? That's what you call someone who lost his fiancée to his brother and got told to smile about it? Chester's voice rose. I'm sick of this. I'm sick of walking around feeling guilty for being happy. For once in my life, I found something real. And all you do is throw it in my face. Something real. I barked out a laugh. You mean marrying her in the venue I booked? Yeah, that's real. All right, real pathetic. Enough. Dad's voice thundered through the room. He stood, pointing at me like I was 12 years old again. This anger, this resentment, it's poisoning everything. Chester didn't make a mistake. He made a choice. And it's time you let it go. Sasha is part of our family now. Chester is happy. We're all happy. The only one sulking is you. And that's a choice you're making. I just stood there staring at the three of them, the people who were supposed to love me, supposed to have my back. And all I could think was, they'll never see it. They'll never see me. You're right. I said quietly. They all looked surprised, like I'd just given in. You're right, I repeated. I am making a choice. I'm choosing not to pretend this is okay. I'm choosing not to waste another second trying to earn approval from parents who only see me as the backup son. Dad's face hardened. If you can't move on, then maybe you don't belong in this family anymore. I stared him down. And what if I don't? What if I don't move on? What then? His jaw tightened, his eyes narrowing like he was about to hand down a sentence. Then maybe we'll have no choice but to cut you off for good. I stepped toward the door and pulled it open, holding it wide. Go ahead. Do it. Make it official, because I'm done pretending I still have a family here. We locked eyes for a long second, neither of us blinking. Finally, he turned away, muttering to Mom about how I'd regret this. They filed out still, throwing little digs about me being selfish, about me tearing the family apart. I told them to leave the spare key. No more surprise visits. No more so-called interventions. For the first time in months, I felt like I had taken something back. Of course, I didn't realize then how far they'd actually go. For a while, I thought maybe I'd finally scared them off. After the key in the door stunt, I figured they'd back down. Weeks passed, and things were quiet. Too quiet. But then little stuff started happening that didn't sit right with me. At work, my boss, who'd always been fair with me, suddenly seemed distant. He stopped looping me into meetings I normally ran. Coworkers I got along with acted awkward, like they knew something I didn't. One guy even asked if I was doing okay, in that slow, cautious tone you'd use with somebody fresh out of a psych ward. I brushed it off at first. Maybe I was paranoid. But then my manager pulled me into his office. He closed the door, leaned back in his chair, and gave me this look like he was about to deliver bad news. Mason, he said carefully, your father called me. Just like that, my stomach dropped. Apparently, Dad had reached out to him through old connections. Said he was worried about me. Told my boss I'd been unstable since the breakup, that I might not be able to handle stress at work. He framed it as concern, but it was really a hit job, a way to paint me as unreliable so I'd come crawling back to the family for support. I sat there stunned, gripping the armrest of the chair so tight my knuckles hurt. My boss must have seen the look on my face because he quickly added, I don't believe a word of it. You've been one of our most dependable people. HR even logged it as an inappropriate third-party complaint, which honestly just made you look better on paper. I just thought you deserved to know. That night I called Dad. No hello, no pleasantries. Just, what the hell do you think you're doing calling my job? He didn't even deny it. Mason, I was worried. You've been shutting us out, isolating yourself. I thought maybe your employer should know in case. In case what? I snapped. In case I embarrassed you. In case I didn't fall in line. You tried to wreck my career because I wouldn't stand next to Chester at his wedding. Don't be dramatic, he said in that calm, patronizing tone that always set my teeth on edge. I was trying to protect you. No, I shot back. You were trying to control me. And when you couldn't do it with guilt, you tried to do it with sabotage. Silence. For a second, I thought maybe I'd actually gotten through to him. Then his voice dropped, colder than I'd ever heard it. If you, he said it so cold it almost didn't sound real. If you won't move on from this, Mason, maybe you don't belong in this family anymore. My heart was pounding, but I forced the words out anyway. And what if I don't? What if I don't move on? Then what? There was a pause. Then he dropped it. Then we'll make it official. I hung up before he could say anything else. My hands were shaking so badly I could barely set the phone down. A week later, he showed up at my door. I opened it to find him standing there in one of his perfectly tailored suits, an envelope in his hand. His face wore that same grim look he used to give me as a teenager right before grounding me. Except this wasn't about curfew this time. Mason, he said flatly, holding out the envelope. This is your choice. I took it without breaking eye contact. The paper inside was heavy, expensive, professional. Law firm letterhead, the kind his office always used for contracts. I scanned it, and the meaning hit instantly. It was all legal language, but the message was simple. I was cut out. Every financial tie severed. All inheritance revoked. No access to trusts, no rights to accounts, no authority to use the family name in business. At the bottom were both his and Mom's signatures. I read it twice before looking back at him. "You actually did it. You forced our hand," he said, like this was somehow my fault. "I forced your hand," I repeated slowly. "By being upset that my brother stole my fiancée? You forced our hand by choosing bitterness over family." I laughed sharp and humorless. "You mean by choosing self-respect?" His jaw tightened, but he didn't flinch. "You chose pride over family. Chester has always been the better son anyway. We should have done this years ago." That one hit harder than I wanted to admit, but I didn't let it show. I folded the letter, slid it back into the envelope, and handed it back to him. "You know what? You're right. This is what I chose. Thanks for making it easy." Behind him, I spotted Mom sitting in the passenger seat of their car. She was staring straight ahead, refusing to even glance at me. Chester wasn't there. Maybe he didn't have the stomach for it. Or maybe they just didn't trust him not to break. Dad stood there a second longer, like he was waiting for me to beg. I didn't. Finally, he turned and walked back to the car. I shut the door, slid the deadbolt, and leaned against it, exhaling slow. It was over. At least, that's what I thought. But I had no idea what was still coming. 3 weeks after they served me those papers, I really believed maybe it was done. They'd cut me off, I'd cut them out. Clean break. Life was finally quiet. Too quiet, looking back. Then, one morning around 6 a.m., I woke up to pounding on my front door so violent it rattled the frame. This wasn't knocking, not even ringing the bell. It was fists slamming non-stop, like they wanted to beat the hinges off. I sat up, disoriented, and grabbed my phone. That's when my stomach flipped. 147 missed calls. 89 voicemails. Over 150 texts, all from Mom, Dad, and Chester. The banging didn't stop. My name echoed through the wood like they were trying to exorcise a demon. Between shouts, I could hear Mom crying. Instead of rushing to answer, I got up, pulled on sweatpants, and padded into the kitchen. I set up the coffee maker, letting it hiss and gurgle while they kept screaming outside. If they wanted my attention, they could wait until I had caffeine. At one point, I peeked through the blinds and saw my neighbor across the street, standing on her porch in a bathrobe, arms crossed, watching the circus unfold. Her face said everything. Your family's lost it. By the time I finally opened the door, they nearly collapsed inside. Dad looked wrecked, shirt wrinkled, tie hanging loose, eyes bloodshot like he hadn't slept in days. Mom's mascara streaked down her cheeks. Hair stuck to her damp face. Chester somehow looked worse than both. Pale, sweaty, jaw twitching, his hair sticking up like he'd been yanking at it. "Thank God," Dad muttered, shoving past me. "We need to talk." I leaned against the counter, coffee mug in hand. "Do we? Last time we spoke, you made it official we weren't family anymore." Mom grabbed my arm with both hands. Desperate. "Mason, please just tell us what you did." "Tell who what?" I asked, deadpan. "Don't play dumb," Chester snapped, pacing my living room like a cornered animal. "The reporters. Somebody gave them everything." I raised an eyebrow. "Reporters?" "The Jackson case," Dad said, his voice trembling. "They're running an exposé. They know about the cover-up, the missing evidence, the intimidation. They're saying I built my career on corruption." His hands shook as he yanked a folded printout from his jacket and slapped it onto the coffee table. It was a draft of the story, headline already screaming about justice denied. I skimmed a few lines, then laughed. "You seriously think I leaked this? I didn't even know there was a story until 30 seconds ago." "You're the only one who had access," Dad shot back. "You knew details. You wanted revenge." "Revenge?" I scoffed. "You legally cut me off. Why would I lift a finger to help the press when I can sit here with my coffee and watch you crash on your own?" Mom sobbed harder. Please, Mason. If you did this, stop it. Retract it. They'll destroy us. The firm, the family name, everything. I stared at her. You disowned me 3 weeks ago. You don't get to call me family now. The room went heavy. Chester froze mid-pace, his face pale. He jabbed a finger at me. It had to be you. Who else could have? You must have hacked Dad's office or gone through files. Sure, I said, grinning. I broke into the law firm archives, cracked the safe, and leaked it to the Times. All between shifts at work. Totally plausible. Shut up, Chester snapped, his voice cracking. You've always wanted to ruin me. Funny, I said. You're doing a pretty good job of that yourself. That's when his pacing stopped. His eyes went wide like he'd just been shot. He ran a shaky hand through his hair. Oh my God, he muttered. It's Sasha. Mom's head whipped toward him. What do you mean? Chester's chest heaved. I told her. After we got married. She wanted to know how the firm got so big. I thought she'd be impressed. So I told her about Jackson. About how we pulled it off. Dad's face drained of color. You told her what? I didn't think she'd do anything, Chester stammered, his voice almost breaking. I thought she'd be proud of me. Proud of us. I never thought. Mom covered her mouth. Tears welled up again. Oh, Chester. I leaned back against the counter, sipping my coffee. So let me get this straight. You marry my fiancée, then hand her the family's biggest skeleton in the closet. And I'm the one you accused? Shut up. Chester barked. His hands shook as he yanked out his phone. We'll see. We'll find out right now. He jabbed at the screen, slapped it on speaker, and dropped it on the table. All 3 of them hovered over it like it was a live bomb. 4 rings. Then her voice. Calm, controlled. Chester, what time is it there? I'm in meetings. Chester's voice cracked. We need to talk now. On the other end, Sasha's voice stayed steady, almost amused. Chester, it's early. I told you I'm in meetings all day. Don't play games, Chester snapped, voice breaking. The papers, the story about my dad's firm. They have everything. Did you talk to them? The pause was so long the silence buzzed. Then Sasha laughed. Not that bubbly fake laugh she used to flash at dinner, but sharp and cutting. You really don't get it, do you? She said finally. Mom gasped, covering her mouth. Dad's fists clenched. Chester looked like his world was collapsing right there in my living room. What do you mean? He whispered. Sasha's tone went ice cold. I mean, this was never about you, Chester. Or Mason. You were just convenient. Chester stumbled back like she'd slapped him. What? You were never my endgame, Sasha continued. You were my shortcut. The room froze. Even I stopped breathing. Shortcut. Chester croaked. Shortcut to what? To your father, she said flatly. To his firm. To the case that ruined my family. Dad stepped forward, voice booming. What the hell are you talking about? Sasha didn't hesitate. The Jackson case. The one you built your empire on. The one where you buried evidence, intimidated witnesses, and sent an innocent man to prison so your client could walk. That man was my father. It was like someone sucked all the air out of the room. The air went out of the room. She kept talking, her voice steady, sharp, almost surgical. My father spent the rest of his life locked in a cell for something he didn't do. My mother. She couldn't handle it. She had a heart attack a year later and never recovered. I was 16, alone, forced to watch our family name rot while your family got richer off our destruction. For the first time in my life, I looked at Dad. I saw something break across his face. His jaw went slack, his eyes darting like he'd just been caught naked in public. You're lying, he muttered. You're making this up. Am I? Sasha shot back. Because the documents, the tapes, the witnesses, they're already with reporters. Everything you thought you buried? I dug it up. And now the world knows. Mom broke into sobs and collapsed onto the couch. Chester looked like he might throw up. Dad just stood there, trembling with rage and fear all tangled together. And me. I laughed. Not because it was funny, but because the irony was so sharp it cut. All their scheming, all their betrayal, all their smug little lectures about family first, and it was Sasha, their perfect golden girl, who gutted them. Chester clutched the phone like it was a lifeline. Sasha, please. You loved me. You said. I never loved you, she interrupted, cold as ice. I studied you. I studied all of you. Mason was the first opening, so I took it. A coffee shop meet cute? Please. I knew exactly where he went every morning. I knew what he liked, what he wanted. He was my way in. Then you came along, Chester. And you were even better. Stupid enough to fall for me. Desperate enough to spill secrets. You gave me the last piece I needed. You used me, Chester whispered. Yes, she said simply. And you made it easy. He staggered back, covering his face with his hands. Oh my God. Dad barked into the phone. Do you have any idea what you've done? You've destroyed lives. Ruined reputations. Sasha cut him off. No. You did that. You destroyed my father's life when you chose money over truth. You killed my mother when you left her to grieve herself into the grave. All I did was pull back the curtain. The silence that followed was brutal. You could hear Mom sobbing, Chester's ragged breathing, Dad grinding his teeth like he was about to explode. And me. I just stood there with my coffee, watching their empire crumble. Sasha's voice softened, not with kindness, but with finality. Enjoy what's left of your legacy. I'll be watching. Then the line went dead. No one moved for a solid minute. It was like time had stopped. Finally, Dad sank into a chair and buried his face in his hands. Mom rocked back and forth on the couch, whispering prayers. Chester dropped to the floor, the phone clattering beside him, and let out this broken sound. Half sob, half scream. I set my mug down on the counter, walked to the door and opened it wide. Well, I said calmly. Looks like you got your official ending. Dad shot up, rage flashing through his eyes. This isn't over. We'll fight this. We'll fix it. Good luck with that, I said. But leave me out of it. I'm not part of this family, remember? Your words, not mine. They eventually filed out, stumbling into the daylight like ghosts. Chester couldn't even look at me. Mom avoided my eyes. Dad slammed the door behind him so hard the frame rattled. When the house finally went quiet again, I sat back down with my coffee and looked at the engagement ring that had started all of this. For the first time in months, I didn't feel like the broken one anymore. For once, it wasn't my head under their boot. It was theirs. And the best part, I didn't even have to lift a single finger. Sasha did all the dirty work. And she didn't even do it for me, she did it for herself. The exposé hit the newsstands the very next morning. Big bold headline across the front page. Prominent attorney built career on wrongful conviction. They didn't hold back. They laid it all out, how Dad's firm had buried evidence, how witnesses were intimidated, how the Jackson case was basically a masterclass in corruption. A former paralegal had flipped. Plus, there was a time-stamped audio file backing up every detail. Names, dates, receipts. It was airtight. By noon, reporters were camped outside my parents' house. By evening, 3 of Dad's biggest clients announced they were cutting ties. And by the end of the week, the state bar had suspended his law license pending investigation. Years of smug speeches about ethics and family reputation. Gone in 7 days. I didn't go anywhere near their house, but I didn't need to. Neighbors whispered. Colleagues looked away. Even their church friends stopped coming around. Mom, who had been obsessed with image her whole life, now had her own face plastered on the news, looking like she'd aged 20 years overnight. Chester wasn't spared either. Word spread fast that Sasha had been the source of the leak. Their perfect marriage collapsed in record time. One day, they were posting smiling couple photos. The next, Sasha was gone. Moved her stuff out while Chester was at work, apparently. Took half the bank account with her too. About a week later, my phone buzzed. Chester's name lit up the screen. Against my better judgment, I answered. "Hello." All I heard at first was breathing. Then Chester's broken voice. "She took everything." I leaned back in my chair, staring at the ceiling. "No," I said slowly. "She revealed everything." Silence on his end. I could practically hear him falling apart. Then the line went dead. That was the last time we spoke. Mom, for her part, started therapy. Or at least that's what one of her sisters told me. I guess she's finally trying to face the decades of denial she wrapped herself in. Dad, though, he just withdrew. From what I hear, he barely leaves the house. A man who used to strut through courtrooms like he owned them now hides from the mailman. Meanwhile, I moved forward. Work promoted me. Senior project manager now. Guess throwing myself into extra hours to numb the pain paid off. Ironically, I bought a small house across town. Painted it whatever colors I wanted. No one nagging me about resale value. Filled it with furniture I actually liked instead of stuff meant to impress guests. And then there was Jessica. She wasn't flashy. She wasn't playing some angle. She wasn't trying to measure me against my brother. She just liked me. We met through a mutual friend, grabbed coffee, and for once I didn't feel like I was auditioning to be good enough. She laughed at my dumb jokes. She asked about my work like it actually mattered. She never once brought up my last name. A few months in, she curled up next to me on the couch and asked, "Do you ever regret cutting ties with him? Do you miss having a family?" I thought about it long and hard. Finally told her the truth. I miss the family I thought I had. But that family never existed, because it didn't. What I had was a group of people bound by blood and control. They never saw me. Not really. They saw Chester as their golden boy and me as the spare tire. And the moment I stopped playing along, they tossed me aside without blinking. It stung. Of course, it stung. But it was also freeing. See, Sasha thought she destroyed me. She probably still does. But what she really did was set me free. Free from the weight of their expectations. Free from the trap of constantly trying to be enough. Free from the cycle of betrayal and gaslighting. My real family now. It's Jessica, who makes me laugh until my stomach hurts. It's my buddy Tom from work, the guy who called me every day after the breakup just to make sure I was still standing. It's my neighbor Mrs. Chen, who brings me soup when I'm sick and doesn't ask for anything in return. That's family, the people who choose you, not the ones who use you. And every time I think back to that engagement ring still sitting in its little velvet box, I don't feel the old sting anymore. I feel relief. Relief that I didn't marry into a life built on lies. Relief that I dodged a bullet I never even saw coming. Dad's firm is gone. Chester's marriage is gone. My old life is gone. And good riddance. I finally get to build something real. Something that's mine. And for the first time, maybe ever, I'm not looking for their approval. I don't need it. I never did. Because family isn't about blood. It's about who shows up when everything falls apart. And mine's finally worth keeping.